The echo came from the void, faint but persistent. In Jupiter's orbit, where the gravitational observatory horizon silently floated, something impossible was detected. A harmonic pattern passed through the station's instruments. Not a natural signal, nor any known transmission. It was a sequence of waves that shouldn't exist, emitted not from deep space but from some point in the future. "We're hearing something that hasn't happened yet," said Dr. Lina Orsini, the chief astrophysicist, her eyes gleaming with fascination. But there was something unsettling about the echo, something that made everyone in the room feel small and vulnerable. "What if this isn't just a sound?" she asked, more to herself than to the others. The Horizon's crew was as diverse as the cosmos they explored. Lina, a scientist with an unshakable obsession to understand the universe, led the project. By her side was Elliot Crane, an artificial intelligence specialist who believed the transmission might be the key to unlocking the secrets of time. Jonas Varek, the head of security, was a skeptic with little patience for theories. To him, the mission was just another risk in a universe already full of dangers. "Listening to the future sounds nice in theory," he said, "but it's the kind of thing that ends badly." As the echoes intensified, the mission changed. The original project, which aimed to monitor gravitational anomalies, became a race to decipher the meaning of the transmissions. "This is more than a pattern," said Elliot as he adjusted the AI's algorithms to translate the sound. "It's a language, and it's trying to tell us something." Tension grew as the signals became more complex, almost human. Jonas remained skeptical. What if it's something we don't want to hear? Lina, however, was convinced the risk was worth it. If something is trying to communicate, we can't ignore it. The first major breakthrough came during a night of gravitational turbulence. For a brief moment, the transmission became clear, and the artificial intelligence managed to translate fragments of the message. "We are trapped. The horizon is closing." The words echoed through the command room, leaving everyone in silence. Jonas was the first to break it. Trapped where? And who's speaking? Lina had no answers, but her instincts told her the message was genuine. "Whoever it is, they're asking for help," she said. Yet something about the message disturbed her. The horizon they mentioned didn't seem purely physical. It was something deeper. The climax came with the appearance of a map. Formed by patterns of light and sound, it seemed to float on the main display, shifting and adjusting as if it were alive. Lina was captivated. "This isn't just a map. It's an invitation," she said, her fingers gliding over the data. But Jonas saw it differently. "Or it's a trap," he countered, his voice laced with distrust. Elliot, ever the optimist, tried to mediate. "Whatever it is, it's a path. And that's why we're here. To explore the unknown." As the map pulsed softly, the crew knew they were on the brink of something that could change everything, for better or for worse. The map was enigmatic and mesmerizing. Composed of patterns of light that floated on the main display, it seemed alive, constantly shifting as if responding to the team's observations. Dr. Lina Orsini was engrossed, analyzing every variation in the pattern. "This isn't just a map," she said, more to herself than to the others. "It's a system. It's guiding us." Elliot Crane, by her side, adjusted the artificial intelligence algorithms to try to understand the logic behind the map. "If this is an invitation, how do we move forward?" he asked. Jonas, seated in the back, crossed his arms and watched skeptically. "You're talking as if this is something benign. But what if it's something else?" The ship began reacting to the map. As soon as Lina uploaded the coordinates provided by the pattern, the station's gravitational sensors picked up increasing instability. The singularity that the horizon had been studying seemed to be shifting, as if responding to the map. "Is this a coincidence?" Jonas asked, his voice heavy with suspicion. Lina shook her head. "There's no such thing as coincidence in physics. The singularity is reacting because the map is connecting us to it." Elliot tried to reassure Jonas. "If this leads us to the source of the message, we might finally understand what's happening." The data began to reveal something alarming. As they analyzed the map, Elliot realized it wasn't just providing a pathway into the singularity. It also appeared to be restructuring the singularity itself. "This is like a repair code," he said, pointing to the graphs. If it works, the singularity will stabilize. But his voice faltered. Lena completed his thought. But if we fail, it could collapse entirely. The weight of the revelation settled over everyone. Jonas wasted no time voicing his concerns. You want to follow a map that could literally destroy us? The crew started feeling the effects of the singularity. Gravitational waves rippled through the ship, creating strange fluctuations in time. Digital clocks slowed down and sped up unpredictably, while some crew members reported sensations of déjà vu and memory lapses. Lena tried to remain focused. These anomalies are expected. We're approaching something that defies space-time. Jonas, however, grew increasingly uncomfortable. Expected or not, that doesn't mean we should be here. We're meddling with something we don't understand. The dilemma divided the team. Lena and Elliot were determined to follow the map, believing it was the key to saving the network and deciphering the message. Jonas, on the other hand, saw the map as a trap. You're blindly trusting something without knowing where it came from, he argued, glaring at Lena. What if this invitation is just bait to lure us into the singularity? Lena tried to calm him. We're not being blind, Jonas. We're following the evidence. If we don't try, we'll never know what's happening here. A new event raised even more questions. While the team debated, the map began changing again, displaying a different pattern, something that resembled a series of symbols. Elliot managed to decipher part of the code using artificial intelligence. It's a message, he said as the symbols translated into words. The horizon is closing. You must enter. Lena felt a chill hearing the words, but also an undeniable sense of urgency. If this is a cry for help, we need to act quickly. The singularity won't wait for us. The final decision was made. Despite Jonas's objections, Lena and Elliot convinced the crew to follow the map's instructions. Using the coordinates provided, the ship began moving closer to the core of the singularity. The structure around the ship appeared distorted, as if space itself were folding in on itself. Jonas, still distrustful, remained alert, ready to react to any sign of danger. As the Eternum dove deeper into the unknown, Lena murmured to herself, if we're wrong, we'll never know. But if we're right, this could change everything. The Eternum crossed the threshold of the singularity, and the universe changed. As the ship entered the core, the space around it stopped following any familiar logic. Lights and shadows pulsed in sync with the gravitational readings, creating shapes that seemed to emerge and vanish in the same instant. It's like being inside a wave, said Elliot Crane, watching the monitors struggle to interpret the environment. Nothing here is fixed. Dr. Lena Orsini, despite the chaos, was fascinated. We're witnessing something that's never been documented before. This isn't just science. It's the very essence of reality being revealed. The ship's systems began to fail. As the Eternum ventured deeper, its primary sensors destabilized, and gravitational readings grew inconsistent. The instruments can't keep up, said Elliot, trying to manually adjust the parameters. Jonas Varek, however, was less concerned about the data and more about safety. If our systems can't process this, how can we trust the ship to hold together? Lena remained calm. The Eternum was built for extreme environments. This is just more extreme than we anticipated. The first major discovery came when the singularity responded. Waves of energy radiated from the core, creating patterns of light that seemed to form symbols. Elliot quickly began analyzing them. These patterns are consistent with the previous message, he said. They're trying to communicate again. Jonas, watching the lights, wasn't convinced. Or they're trying to deceive us. How do we know this isn't some kind of trap? Lena ignored his skepticism. Jonas, what we're seeing here is more than communication. It's a form of intelligence. We need to understand it. The gravitational waves began to affect the crew. Some members reported feelings of déjà vu, while others started experiencing visions. Lena saw flashes of a future where the Eternum was destroyed, but the network survived. Elliot saw Earth, desolate and shrouded in shadows. Jonas, on the other hand, saw himself in an empty space, surrounded by echoes of voices he didn't recognize. This isn't normal, Jonas said, his voice tense. These visions, they're trying to manipulate us. Lena, trying to process her own experience, replied, what if they're not manipulations? What if they're possibilities? At the center of the singularity, a structure began to emerge. It was colossal, made of crystalline light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Fragments floated around the structure, forming and dissolving at the same time. This must be the core, Lena said, watching in awe. This is where everything converges. Elliot was absorbed in the data. The readings indicate this is more than a physical mechanism. It's an interface, something that connects alternate realities. Jonas, however, remained defensive. And what happens if we tamper with it? We don't know what we're about to activate. The core began emitting a new message, clearer than before. The voice, still distorted, seemed to address the crew directly. You have arrived. The horizon is closing. The core is dying. Rebuild or all will be lost. The message was met with mixed reactions. Lena felt a mix of hope and urgency. They need us. This confirms everything. Elliot was more cautious. But rebuild how? And at what cost? Jonas, on the other hand, was furious. They want us to risk our lives for something we don't even know is real. What if we're just accelerating the collapse? The dilemma further divided the team. Lena insisted they had to act. If we do nothing, the network will collapse, and all the realities connected to it will be destroyed. Elliot, though hesitant, agreed with her. We have the tools. The Eternum can interact with the core. Jonas, however, couldn't accept it. This isn't our responsibility. We're putting ourselves in danger for something we don't fully understand. As the core's lights pulsed, the crew knew they were faced with a choice that would change everything. Not just for them, but for the universe as a whole. The Eternum was in sync with the core of the network. Waves of gravitational energy surrounded the ship, creating a rhythmic pattern that seemed to echo through the station's systems. The ship is reacting to the environment, said Elliot Crane, monitoring the instruments with his eyes fixed on the screens. We're connected to it now. Dr. Lena Orsini examined the data as her mind raced for answers. The network is waiting for us. It's like an open interface, but incomplete. Jonas Verek, standing beside her, looked at the core with distrust. Or it's pulling us into something we can't control. The core began projecting images directly into the ship. Each fragment of crystalline light emitted holograms that filled the Eternum's command bridge. What once seemed like a mere pattern of light now displayed alternate realities, worlds that looked like distorted versions of Earth. In one, humanity had colonized space, but at the cost of destroying an alien civilization. In another, Earth was in ruins, consumed by technological wars. These aren't random visions, Lena said in a low voice. These are possibilities. The network is showing us what's at stake. The psychological effects on the crew began to intensify. Jonas was the first to feel the impact. He saw himself in one of those alternate realities, leading a resistance against machines that had taken over the planet. That's not me, he murmured, his hands trembling. This is something that should never have happened. Lena, meanwhile, saw a version of herself working with the network to prevent the collapse of multiple worlds, but at the cost of her humanity. Elliot saw Earth as a starting point for something greater, but realized that his version of the future required sacrifices he wasn't sure he could bear. The network isn't just showing possibilities, Elliot said gravely. It's testing us. The core revealed an additional message. This time, the voice was clearer, almost human. The heart of the network must be restored. A human link is needed to maintain the balance. The crew fell silent, processing the meaning of those words. Lena was the first to speak. A human link? That means one of us has to connect to the core. Jonas exploded in protest. That's suicide. They're asking us to give up our lives for something we don't even know is worth it. Lena, with a determined look, replied, and what if this is the only way to save not just our reality but all others? The conflict between Lena and Jonas reached its peak. Jonas, still consumed by skepticism, confronted Lena directly. You're so obsessed with the idea of saving this network that you're not seeing what it's doing to us. We're destroying ourselves for something that might not even be real. Lena didn't back down. Jonas, what we're seeing here is bigger than us. Bigger than anything humanity has ever encountered. If you can't see that, maybe you should head back to Earth and let the rest of us do what needs to be done. The tension between the two threatened to destabilize the team. Elliot stepped in, trying to mediate. "We have to remember why we're here," he said, his voice firm but calm. "The message we received wasn't a coincidence. We were chosen because we have the tools and knowledge to do this. But we have to work together. Without trust, none of this matters." Despite Elliot's conciliatory words, Jonas remained skeptical, while Lena was more determined than ever. "If this is the choice we have to make, I'm ready to take the risk," she said. The final connection to the core began. Using the data provided by the network, Lena and Elliot started preparing the ship to transfer energy to the core and stabilize it. Jonas, still distrustful, monitored the security systems, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. As the ship connected to the core, the network reacted dramatically. Waves of energy pulsed through space, and the surrounding light began to intensify. Lena, standing before the main console, murmured to herself, "If this works, it'll be the start of something new. If it fails, at least we tried." The Eternum was connected to the core of the network, and nothing felt stable. As energy began flowing from the ship to the core, the environment around them reacted violently. Waves of light pulsed as if space itself were folding in on itself. Elliot Crane watched the monitors with growing concern. "The systems are overloaded. I don't know how much longer we can sustain this." Dr. Lena Orsini, focused on maintaining the process, ignored the warnings. "We have to keep going. If we stop now, everything will be lost." Jonas Varek, however, grew increasingly suspicious. "We're giving them everything. What if that's exactly what they want?" The core began emitting new patterns, now more complex and unpredictable. Lights and symbols floated across the ship's bridge, growing more intense as the network's voice returned. "Balance is near. The link must be forged." Lena felt the weight of those words, knowing the previously mentioned human sacrifice was drawing closer. "They're telling us something is still missing," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Elliot shook his head. "The energy isn't enough. They need more. Something only we can provide." Jonas frowned. "And that something is a human life, isn't it?" The effects of the connection to the core began impacting the crew directly. Lena felt constant pressure in her mind, as if memories of other lives were being transmitted to her. She saw alternate versions of herself. In one, she led a team that abandoned the mission, resulting in the collapse of multiple realities. In another, she sacrificed herself, but the network survived, saving billions. Elliot began to feel a strange emotional connection to the core, as if he himself were becoming part of the system. Jonas, on the other hand, experienced an oppressive sense of isolation, as if trapped in an endless cycle of wrong choices. "This is breaking us," he said, panting. "We weren't made for this." The final dilemma began to take shape. As the core slowly stabilized, the network presented its demand clearly. The heart requires a human link. Without it, collapse is inevitable. Lena knew what had to be done. "I will connect to the core," she said with a determination that silenced the room. Jonas immediately objected. "No, this isn't your responsibility. We can't just give you up to something we don't even understand." But Lena stood firm. "Jonas, this isn't about me. It's about something greater. If there's a chance to save all of this, I'm willing to do whatever it takes." The tension between Lena and Jonas reached its breaking point. Jonas, holding an emergency device that could interrupt the energy transfer, confronted Lena directly. "You're being manipulated. They're using your compassion against you." Lena looked at him with a mix of sadness and determination. "And what if they are? What if my compassion is exactly what they need?" "Jonas, I know you're afraid, but we can't let fear make this decision for us." Elliot tried to intervene, placing a hand on Jonas's shoulder. "She's right. We can't turn back now." The ship began to buckle under the pressure of the network. Critical systems were failing, and the environment around the Eternum grew increasingly unstable. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the ship's structure groaned under forces that defied physics. Jonas, seeing the situation deteriorate, finally lowered the emergency device. "If you truly believe this is the right thing to do, I won't stop you. But know that if this goes wrong, it'll be the end of all of us." Lena nodded, a faint smile on her face. "Thank you, Jonas. I hope one day you'll understand." Lena connected to the core and everything changed. The moment she touched the pulsating crystal at the center of the network, a burst of light filled the ship's bridge. Elliot and Jonas were thrown back as the environment around them seemed to collapse and rebuild simultaneously. Lena, now enveloped in a radiant glow, felt her consciousness expand. It was as if she were seeing all realities at once. Endless possibilities, lives that could have been and still could be. "Balance is complete," said the network's voice, now clear and resonant. "Reconstruction has begun." As Lena disappeared into the core, Jonas and Elliot watched in silence, aware that their lives would never be the same again. The core's light flooded the Eternum, blinding and incomprehensible. Waves of energy rippled through the ship, destabilizing systems and throwing the crew into chaos. Jonas Varek desperately tried to regain control of the systems, while Elliot Crane watched the patterns of light now filling the bridge with fascination. "She's gone," Jonas murmured, his voice heavy with frustration and grief. Elliot, however, slowly shook his head. "No, Jonas. She's still here. Somehow, she's a part of this now." The core was changing. The crystalline lights that once pulsed chaotically now aligned in perfect synchronicity, forming geometric structures that expanded and contracted like a heartbeat. The network's voice returned, clearer and more unified. "Balance has been restored. Convergence is complete." Jonas shouted toward the core. "What about Lena? What happened to her?" The response came immediately, but not from the network. It was Lena's voice, now echoing through the ship systems. "I'm here, Jonas, but I'm not just me anymore." The ship began to be expelled from the network. The Eternum, once immersed in the core, was now slowly pushed outward, as if the network itself were returning it to normal space. Jonas watched the monitors with concern. "We're being ejected," he said, adjusting the stabilizers. Elliot confirmed, but something was odd. "The systems show we're at the same point we started from. But something's different." The singularity, once unstable, was now a perfect sphere of pulsating light, static yet charged with an almost immeasurable energy. The network delivered its final challenge, a warning. As the ship exited the core, a new message was transmitted. "The horizon has been stabilized, but the cycle is not complete. Protect what has been restored." Elliot tried to decipher the meaning, but the patterns quickly began to fade. "Protect it from what?" he asked aloud. Jonas, still incredulous at everything that had happened, muttered, "Maybe from ourselves." The warning made it clear that while the network was now stable, its balance was fragile, and new threats could arise. The crew faced the absence of Lena. Back in normal space, Jonas and Elliot stared at the spot where the singularity now pulsed, stable yet mysterious. "She sacrificed herself for this," Jonas said, his voice heavy with resentment and sadness. Elliot responded firmly, "She did what she believed was necessary. And because of her, we saved something much greater than ourselves." But Jonas couldn't fully accept it. Was it worth it? We lost an incredible person for something we might never understand. The Eternum systems picked up one final message. It was Lena's voice, soft and almost human. "Jonas, Elliot, you have to keep going. What we did today is only the beginning. The network is alive, but the future remains full of uncertainties. Protect the present, because the horizon is never static." The message brought a moment of silence to the bridge as both processed the meaning of her words. Jonas closed his eyes for a moment and nodded. She was always braver than all of us. The network's core remained an enigma in the cosmos. The Eternum, now damaged, began its journey back to Earth. Elliot felt hopeful, seeing Lena's sacrifice as proof that humanity could transcend any limit. Jonas, however, gazed into the void with skepticism, fully aware that what they had done could have unpredictable consequences. As the ship disappeared into the vastness of space, the network continued to pulse softly, a reminder that the universe was far more complex and fragile than they could ever imagine. The silence aboard the Eternum was absolute. The ship floated in deep space, its systems functioning precariously after the intense connection with the core. Jonas and Elliot remained on the bridge, staring at the main screen, where the light of the network shimmered in the distance, static yet pulsing like a living heart. "She's gone," Jonas said, his voice heavy with grief. Elliot, however, slowly shook his head. "No, Jonas. She's part of it now. And somehow, I think she always will be." The stabilized singularity brought both relief and uncertainty. For the crew, there was a sense of victory, but also a void. Jonas, still struggling with his disbelief, questioned whether what they had done was truly right. Saving something we don't even understand. What if we've put humanity in danger instead of saving it? Elliot responded calmly, yet with conviction. "Maybe we'll never know. But if there's one thing Lena taught us, it's that some choices must be made even without guarantees." The Eternum transmitted a report to Earth, but reactions were mixed. Scientists and global leaders celebrated the stabilization of the singularity as a historic milestone, while others feared the network might represent an uncontrollable threat. What if it decides it doesn't need us anymore? Was the question on many minds. Jonas, in his transmissions, voiced his skepticism. "We've done something we can never undo. And what happens next? We have no control over it." Elliot, on the other hand, defended the decision with optimism. "The network has been restored, and maybe that means a better future for everyone." Lena's voice lingered as an echo within the Eternum systems. As the ship moved away from the network, faint signals were still detected. One final transmission was recorded in the ship's logs, repeated several times before disappearing. Balance has been restored, but the horizon still shifts. Each choice is a new thread in the web. Protect what remains. To Elliot, it was a reminder that the network was not a definitive solution. It was merely the beginning of something greater. To Jonas, it was a warning that the responsibility they had taken on was far from over. Lena's sacrifice became a symbol of courage and humanity. Though her physical presence was gone, her choice remained a point of reflection for all. Elliot often recalled her final words, "The present is what shapes the future. If we don't protect it now, there will be no chance for what comes next." Jonas, despite his skepticism, admitted that her bravery had saved something he himself couldn't fully understand. "She was stronger than any of us," he said in a rare moment of vulnerability. In the depths of space, the network continued to pulse. Now stable, it glowed like a beacon in the cosmos, a constant reminder of the fragility and power of human choices. Its ultimate impact remained unknown. Would it become a protector, a tool, or a threat? The Eternum's crew knew that, one day, humanity would have to return to face those questions. Until then, the network would remain a mystery, a link between realities, shaped by a sacrifice that transcended time and space. The Eternum continued its journey, but doubts lingered. As Jonas and Elliot worked to repair the ship, both reflected on what had happened. Jonas, staring at the screen displaying the distant light of the network, murmured, "What we've done here will never be fully understood." Elliot, adjusting the systems, replied with a faint smile, "Maybe not, but we did what was right in the moment. And that's all we can do." As the Eternum disappeared into the vastness of space, the network's core remained, an eternal enigma, a reminder that the future is shaped by the choices of the present.